Welcome back to MTN Live in the Mount. So here on the couch once again, every Monday, we do have Dan Meyer, and we also have Jared Nichols. He is Dan's guest today. How are you fellas doing today?
It's a beautiful day. Great.
Yeah,
Doing great.
Had a wonderful weekend.
Nice as we've had it here in a while.
Sure has been. Sure has been. Want to just remind everybody about the great expo that we had on Friday, and we appreciate what MTN 18 did in terms of putting quite a video together, and that's been rolling over the weekend, and we look forward to being able to maybe post it on our website as well. But we really appreciate Terry and his son coming over and interviewing the participants there. We had 55 businesses, all kind of. It's a show. It's a telling show, not a selling show, and so that people in our community could kind of see some of the goods and services that are available. And really, our vendors love just the business-to-business networking that goes on there as much as anything.
Yeah.
A lot of business takes place there. They say a lot of business decisions get made on boats and on the golf course. And I think a lot of them also get made in networking situations like that as well. So we just had a great time. And again, we appreciate MTN 18 being there to video for us.
Yeah, there's a ton of people there, though, I'll tell you what.
Yeah, because we went out, Drew and I were there, and Danielle was there as well, and I mean, I had fun.
Good.
I mean, I think it was a great event, and I mean, there was so many different vendors.
Good thing it was inside too, because it was a rainy day that day. But
well, the mall has been great. I don't know how many years we've done it there now, but it's such a central location, and it's always inside, which is good, and it's good for the mall as well. So they've been great hosts over the years for us.
I'll tell you what, anybody that was walking through the mall that day had a pretty good opportunity to see a bunch of different things in the high country and get, like you said, a little bit of an idea of what they all offer.
Yeah. Well, earlier in the week, we also had the Watauga County Economic Summit. Now, what that was kind of about, and Jared was the coordinator and the facilitator of that summit, and we had met. It's been several months ago now, and I just shared with Jared that one of the things that we're interested in the chamber is how do we support our local businesses. Well, one of the ways we think we support them is by looking ahead far enough to see some trends that might impact our local businesses.
Right.
And that happened when a fellow chamber president told me that they had lost one member in their chamber, and that member's contribution to that particular big chamber was $1 million. And I started thinking to myself, what would happen if we lost our largest member, or if the largest member in the chamber was impacted negatively or positively? And that biggest player was the university. And the question came, what would happen if enrollment stagnated or if it declined? Right. How would that impact our community? Because there seems to be a disconnect sometimes here in town and in the county about, that's the university, that's not us. Well, last year they dropped $22 million out of the academic programs. And people say, well, that was the university. Well, no, that's $22 million that didn't come into our economy. Yeah. So we started bantering back and forth, and then Joe Furman at the Watauga County Economic Development Commission, we started talking back and forth, and so that kind of morphed into, along with others that met together, morphed into the second annual Economic Development Summit to look at the question, what if? And so Jared facilitated that. Jared's an interesting guy. He is a futurist. Now that's not a crystal ball futurist.
No.
But somebody who can kind of pick up trends and things that are happening and ask the question, how is that going to impact us? So, Jared, tell us a little bit about what does a futurist do, and how did that then play into the Economic Summit?
Yeah, well, there's a number of perceptions about futurists, and Dan already talked about the crystal ball. But really, at the end of the day, what a futurist should be doing, and what I do with what we do with the EDC as well, and what we do with other businesses, is to look at how the future landscape might evolve, how different things that are taking place today could change the way the business landscape looks, the way the society looks. And then what we do is we start to make incremental decisions and actions today so that we prepare ourselves for various possible future outcomes. So the issue isn't about understanding, well, here's what the future is going to be, although many futurists talk about that. But the fact is that we don't know what the future is going to look like. And for most people, the issue is really not about knowing what the future is going to be, but changing the way that we think about the future so that we can be more proactive rather than just sitting back and getting better at reactive, planning and whatnot.
Right. Well, we've seen a lot of different businesses too kind of take that idea on too. So much solar things going on too with businesses as well. And you talked about Appalachian State too being one of our largest economic providers here in this town of Boone, in our area here in Watauga County. I mean, even with the move with them now going to a Division I in athletics and everything, bringing in more students from areas from across the country as well. I mean, that's going to expand the overall population, the student population of Boone, probably the university in general, might bring in a little bit more revenue.
But remember, at the same time, you're talking about that as a potential positive thing. In Raleigh, they're talking about the potential of shutting down 2 universities and reducing the budget. So there are pluses and minuses taking place. Wouldn't it have been wonderful if we'd had thought far ahead back in 2005 about what would happen if the housing market went down?
Right, yeah.
And then implementing some things. So tell us, how did you construct then the discussion that took place at the summit?
Yeah, so what we did is we had, I think, about 110 people participating.
Something like that, yeah.
So we broke folks into 5 different groups, and each of them was given a trend card, just something very simple, very brief that talked about an emerging trend or issue on the horizon. And the reason that we did this is that we, in order to start thinking about the future differently, you have to pull people out of, what's right in front of them. So instead of talking about, here's the issues we're facing in Watauga County, let's look at the issues that we as a nation, as a world, as a society are facing in general, because the external environment always impacts the decisions we make in a local level. So we broke folks into 5 different groups, then we had them break into subgroups from there. And each of them had those cards, and they had to then determine what are the impacts that this event would have on society in general, or on technology, or how does this affect the economy? And so we got them discussing those things. And the whole purpose of that was so that when they came back together with their larger group, was to be able to say, here's the framework of what the future looks like with this as a reality. And from there, each of those groups was then required to put themselves in a future context and give a bullet pointed or somewhat of a sales pitch as to why should a business move to Watauga County? Why should a resident move to Watauga County? And the whole purpose of the exercise was to give people the freedom and the opportunity to think about the absurd, because we started the meeting with a picture from the Civil War. I said, imagine trying to explain to these guys at the picnic table about an iPhone or about drone technology or about, the arguments over designer babies and, all these kinds of things that are on the horizon. It would just be completely absurd to them. So before we can really start being proactive about the future, we have to be able to let our minds think about things that would seem somewhat absurd in order to start, really being strategic about the decisions we make and saying, you know what, we don't know what the future is going to look like. But what we do understand is that the business landscape could be affected and changed by a number of things that are happening so rapidly. So that at the end of the day, people learned at the summit, whether they realize it yet or not, how to uncover implications and impacts of events that they're seeing on the news, things that they're reading in the media, and be able to make better sense of that so that hopefully they start to make better decisions about how they can either take advantage of and seek new markets or protect themselves from potential catastrophe.
So often we see things with blinders on and our peripheral vision. We don't have the peripheral things, and those peripheral things are the things that will impact us. And if we're always looking the same way at the same things without the benefit of some of those trends or other factors, we're kind of confining ourselves.
Getting tunnel vision there.
Right,
bit,
and so it's a mindset about looking at the future. Right. So what's going to be the outcome, or what's the next step, Jared? You're coming back to the EDC with kind of a report, and then...
Yeah. So what I'm going to do is present a very basic report about here's the things that we learned in the summit there. And of course, in that short meeting, that's really just a primer for getting people, as Dan and I were talking earlier, it's like cracking the egg. You have to get people thinking about the future in multiple possibilities as opposed to one end possibility. Right. So the next step really is to take that and put that into actionable strategies, as to how Watauga County should be moving forward. How do we take what we've learned and apply it to the things that we see on the horizon? Not necessarily just those trend cards and those things that we looked at, that was more of an exercise. But how do we really identify emerging, trends and issues that can, greatly impact the high country by understanding how the high country fits into the larger picture of where the country is going and where the world is going.
Kind of mind expanding.
Pretty cool.
To look at things differently. and a real challenge for us. And we look forward to continuing to do some work with Jared. And as we look ahead, if you're interested, there's also going to be a workshop coming up that the Small Business Center at Caldwell is going to be offering on future trends. So be looking for information about that. But we're really excited to have Jared. And love to have him in our community. He's moved his family here from Raleigh because they wanted to be here, because there are things that were attractive to them, and it's young people like this that we need to assist us in looking ahead, because they see things very different than my generation does, and we need that expanded look and a new vision for the future as we move ahead. I'm going to miss you guys the next couple weeks, though.
I know, I'm sad.
No.
I really am. We're sad. We like having you come in.
We're headed out Saturday, 23 of us, on a tour of the Holy Land, headed to Israel.
So jealous.
And we're excited about that, and we'll bring back some news about that.
Yeah.
But so we'll miss you in the next couple of weeks, and hope you have a good time together.
Well, wish you the best of luck.
No,
on
and
that.
you have to bring us back some pictures.
I
You need
can
to take a
bring
picture
pictures.
like by a camel or something.
Okay, I'll bring you.
Can you do that?
I'll bring you a camel picture,
That'd be
guaranteed.
awesome. Thank you. Awesome. Well, Dan, we'll miss you, and it was so nice to meet you as
Yeah,
well.
it's nice to
Good
meet
to
you
have
as
you
well.
here.
Thanks for having
Thank
me on.
you.
Be back in a minute with more MTN Channel 18.